having somebody that you trust to have your back and is just as committed to your brand growing as you are to growing the brand is what you want. That's the person that you want to have your back. You don't want to have someone that you distrust. You want to have somebody that you trust fully to have your business's best interest at heart.
The last of the San Juan sessions this week, John.
The last one.
So you guys teamed up.
Yes.
I'm trying to think about when this was.
Batman,
March,
Robin.
April?
May. Or late April, early May.
Okay.
Yeah.
How big is Lizard now in terms of employees?
We have 14 employees. 14 employees, including Alan. He's still the boss man.
Are you actually doing anything at Lizard? At least anything valuable?
Yes.
Yes?
Not really.
Moral support.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
An attaboy. Wind in the sails when we need it.
So you set up Lizard, you brought Matt in, you've got this team put together. You guys are right now just focused on the pest control space, and you'll probably extend it out to other
home
resi
services
and commercial services?
It makes sense, especially in my experience at Killingsworth, to kind of stretch our sea legs a little bit, because if we're too heavily reliant on pest control, specifically, our gross revenue will match the gross revenue bell curve of pest control, the seasonality of pest control, which is only a problem in the low seasons.
Yep.
So there's natural extensions of pest control like lawn care. There's companies that just do mosquito. I've got experience with HVAC and plumbing and electric and all that kind of stuff as well. So all of the mechanics of home services just kind of work the same. We just adjust the levers a little bit to match the home service. So
when do you guys think you'll do that? Or you want to get saturation really in pests before you do that?
we've developed like a really strong forecast for 2023, and that plays a role, but it's a lesser role. Like obviously PCO, raised in the industry, this is what we know, right? And there's so much opportunity right now in particular in the industry for good digital marketing that has experience in growing with a company. So I think we could stay here for a while without experimenting. I think we'll do a little bit of searching around for other home services that might partner with us, but it will not be the bread and butter.
Clearly, by starting this, you guys saw a need in the market. And so what was that need?
For me, it was transparency. I've done everything from in-house digital marketing to very large, several $100 million agencies. And I just didn't feel like I understood, especially on paid media, where that money was going. I didn't understand what they were doing with the monthly SEO budget. I also didn't like long-term contracts. I didn't understand that. I thought if they're doing a good job for us, we're not going to want to leave. It's a fairly sticky business anyway. So that's really what it came down to, and making sense of it on a rudimentary level. If you log into a Google AdWords account, for me, it's very confusing. So we just wanted to make sure PCOs could understand where their dollars were going so that they can make decisions for their business, in line with what they wanted to achieve and to grow.
So you guys, right now you're focused on the digital marketing space, but Matt, in our earlier discussion, amongst a variety of other things we talked about, you mentioned media buying.
Yeah.
Is that where you ultimately go with this?
It's only an asset to a company once it gets to a certain level. They've got to have the fiscal wherewithal to make investments in good, compelling content. It's like what you guys were talking about earlier. Pest control is not sexy, right? And so you've got to have an imagination to make a compelling case if you're gonna get out there in terms of over-the-top television or traditional broadcast or whatever, right? However you put the message out there, like YouTube pre-roll, whatever, it's got to be good because you're running out of time. I think the blocks now are 6 seconds, 15 seconds, and then maybe you'll get a 30 seconds if they don't hit skip on you, you know? So it's got to be a good message, and you've got to have gotten to a place in a company where you can invest in some of these pieces that have a good shelf life that can brand your company for a while. But I love thinking through problems in that way. And I think at Killingsworth in particular, with Dad's help, we were able to come up with fun ways to talk about pest control without being like, guys, we kill bugs, you know? And so it's great. It's great to be able to work with companies to make messages that stick. You know?
Well, speaking of Killingsworth, I mean, back in those days, you guys were doing TV advertising, but you were also doing a lot of, your dad loved radio advertising. So will that be an adjunct to the digital marketing space at Lizard?
We can totally do that with the clients that we're working with right now. You know, they've got a little growing up to do before they start to endeavor those spaces. But in truth, honest to goodness, you can ride the paid search aspect or the search engine optimization aspect of your digital marketing strategy for quite some time before you need to develop content like that. Because all people are doing when they need to get a PCO out to their house is, hey Siri, find a pest control company, right? And you've just got to leverage your ad as quickly as possible. So for sure, we're definitely gonna cross that bridge. What are you drinking now, saucy man?
I'm drinking a rum.
Okay.
Actually, we're down here in Puerto Rico. That is a, Fernando, which kind of rum is this?
That is Safra.
Zafra.
Safra 30-year age.
30 year. Where's this made?
Panama.
So this is a Panamanian 30-year
Panamanian?
Zafra.
Damn.
Yeah, it's quite tasty as a sipping rum.
I don't know what it is about my wife, but she's like immune to rum all day long, no problems. Me, you give me a little
Is it
rum and I'm like,
alcohol
what?
content?
I don't know.
Less?
No, it's 40%.
It's good.
What the?
It should be 80 proof. Yeah. It's
She'll hate that I'm telling you
it's
this.
one of those things that like sipping rum will sneak up on you because it's sweet. You want to try some? I'll pour you a little bit.
No, I'm
Little
good.
taste?
Thank you.
So Alan, you're down here in Puerto Rico, and Matt and I are indulging in tasty drinks. But as a Mormon, typically you guys aren't drinking coffees, right? No caffeine, and you're not drinking alcohol at all. I mean, that's a pretty much no-brainer. Why is that? I'm just curious.
You know, maintaining control of your body and your health. If you want to talk about door to door, those
my
guys
gosh.
just pound really harmful energy
Drinks.
energy drinks. Yep.
Yeah,
And their diets over the summer are terrible also. So it's
I
just
can only imagine the funk in that frat house.
I have to imagine that those energy drinks are not particularly healthful. But yeah, I've seen that. Okay. So since we're on the topic, you've never had alcohol in your whole life.
never.
Yeah.
No.
So much respect. It blows my mind though.
So Matt, your brother Andrew works for Turner, right? Effectively at anticimex, right? He's a Turner employee.
I'm not exactly sure. Like, there's some type of transition that was made. He's reporting now to North Carolina, South Carolina situation.
But Ricky Bobby's all in on
Ricky
this whole
Bobby.
AX operations thing, and that's great.
He is AX. That's his vibe.
And your father is, it's almost like that Seinfeld episode where Jerry can finally cry and has emotions. Your father's actually,
Yes. Dad's having a lot of firsts.
he's feeling emotions.
at this particular juncture in his life, for sure.
Do you think he'll be back into pest control? I mean, his non-compete expires in a
hope
matter
you're
of months.
watching Mike Rogers. I'm begging him. I would love to, especially knowing what I know now and the experience that I have now.
Yeah.
I could grow the hell out of his company much faster than we grew Killingsworth, and we grew Killingsworth at a crazy click.
Crazy. Actually, one of the highest growth rates I'd seen from a traditional company. So
Right.
what would you do differently?
All of the guesswork is taken out. I mean, it's like, you know, when you jump on a bike, your body knows exactly what to do, right? I'm not learning. There's no more training wheels. Do you know what I mean? And Dad wouldn't be learning. There's no more training wheels. And we've obviously got a track record and still have a brand, you know, a reputation in the town. We could blow some stuff up. Mike, but he, I don't know, he's loving life too much these days. He's saucy. He's loving his wine. He's traveling around the world. He's buying cars. I don't know if he were to come back in. I just don't think it's not in the cards for me.
But having had the experience of growing up in a family business that ultimately became one of the largest pest control companies in the Southeast, if you were to start one tomorrow, what would you do differently than what he did, basically?
I wouldn't do very much different. I'd start small. He grew, according to the P&L. He had gross profit measured per man per day. I'd start with a little bit heavier to launch in terms of marketing. After that, I would use a healthy 6 to 7% marketing budget and grow constantly, and then just call Paul up. Hey, Paul, we got a new one.
But Killingsworth got into digital over time. I mean, I would imagine that would be the primary focus.
Oh yeah, for sure. We'd start there and then work backwards. You can experiment with traditional once your digital is healthy and it's keeping the phone ringing, right? And you've got the systems in place, kind of piggybacking on what Alan was mentioning earlier. When you've got the transparency, you can see everything coming in as it's coming in. You can start to hone your inside sales team and work on route density and, all of that kind of stuff. We would experiment with traditional, but we would definitely start with digital, hot and heavy.
You coming from the traditional side, would you do door to door?
Proof is the only place I've seen the balance between digital and door to door done well. And I'm not just blowing smoke. When I was at other door to door companies, its impact on the profit and loss statement was mind-boggling. So I just don't know how, as a business owner, you can truly enjoy that ride when so much of your revenue is going out the door, right? Because all I know growing up is once it started to work for Dad and Debbie, they just got to enjoy the ride because they were taking home real nice paychecks. And that's because we created a predictable model, we created strong forecasts, we were building good culture, and we were working on our brand messaging in a singular city, right? And so I'm sure the answer is probably yes to an extent, but I would rely heavily on Alan to figure out if I'm even doing it right, because I've seen it done not right more times than not.
Is it true that your father thinks that Donald Trump won the election in 2020? Because I was out there having dinner with him at the Trump golf course he's a member of?
Oh yeah, he is.
Like a couple of days before the general election.
Yes.
And
I don't know if he's as far down that rabbit hole, but it is suffice it to say, his displeasure with the outcome of where things are currently would incline one to believe.
It's not a big push for him to.
Yeah. It wouldn't take very much but a breath to push him down that path, for sure.
Do you guys have much interplay with regard to Lizard with the various different pest control software companies out there, like Pest Routes and Serve Suite or any of that sort of jazz?
Love this question. Can I take it?
Yes.
I love this question because most of the people that we're talking to right now are coming from the place where you and Alan were talking about earlier. They're coming with these handcuffed to annual contracts, stuck with these CSRs that have created a revenue stream out of digital marketing. Here are the two things that I hear the most, and I think this would apply to so many of them. One size fits all. It's like shopping at Men's Warehouse for a good suit, right? Yep. Every PCO is located in a different geographic region. Their marketing budget is different. Their staff, their experience is different. And these things have to inform your digital marketing strategy. You cannot use a one size fits all strategy to efficiently grow a pest control company. And then the second piece is connectivity to the partner, the digital marketing company itself. Most everybody's talking to me about how difficult it is to get anybody on the phone to help them out with any of their problems. They keep cutting these checks, they're stuck cutting these checks, but they can't get anybody on the phone to help them and things aren't working, right? And so we're trying to do the exact opposite of that. When you've met a demand and you've solved a problem, I think that you might have something on your hands. And if those are the two problems that we're focused on at Lizard, connecting to our partners and making sure they know that we're right there and we're available to them, and we're here to talk them through a very complicated digital marketing strategy, and not treating them like one size fits all. How you treat a pest control company in Michigan is not the same as how you treat a pest control company in South Carolina. It's just not the same. So I think the combination of one of those two things are creating the success that we've gotten so far. And I think that that's what's going to continue to drive us forward for sure.
Are most of the clients that come to you guys using digital marketing agencies that they work with, or are they guys that just have tried to do it internally or haven't embraced it yet and come to you, or is it a mix?
It's more so the other. They're trying to get out of the situations that they're in. I would say it's probably like 70-30. 30% of them are like, hey, we are trying to figure this out. Will you help us?
Okay.
And then 70% are like, please help us. We're stuck. Our shit's awful. And we're stuck. Do you know what I mean?
You guys have scaled rapidly in 1 year. How many clients do you have? You went from 0 to what do you have now?
Right now, we're at 32.
Okay.
I am trying to figure out the sweet spot between expanding rapidly. You know, we've got, I think, 6 more clients in the pipeline right now that we're trying to, ease into the situation. And then make sure my staff is healthy, they love their jobs. Because if they're healthy and they love their jobs, they are happy to connect with their partners and make sure we're meeting their needs.
And you guys right now are entirely distributed. Like you don't have a central office. People are all the heck over the place. And that's how you're going to grow that business?
Yeah, it's great. It's unlimited PTO. We meet every day, but we're driven by task, right? And quality. So we're pairing up the right account manager with the right company, and we're putting the right teams in place to support this particular company. And so far, it's working great.
I'm just curious as to what sort of pushback you may have gotten from clients. What sort of concerns do people have before signing up with you?
Trust, 100%. It's trust. So because you've got handcuffed PCOs out there that are stuck in annual contracts with mediocre results and that are expensive, they have a lot of problem trusting us. The no contract helps them because we're like, hey, if you hate us, just fire us.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
That helps them. But building trust in the first, I would say 2 months is pretty key. That's the thing that we work on the most. We're refining probably the most.
And Matt, what's your ultimate vision for this business? I mean, when you think about like where you're going with it, because at the end of the day, you're really the visionary there.
Well, I will be brutally honest. I want to like where I work, and I want the people to work with me to like their jobs and want to come in, right? And I want to have a good reputation with the partners that come with Lizard. And the only way to kind of keep those things in balance is to not prioritize profit over partner, right? I think that as long as we are growing at a very steady pace between staff and partners, we're going to find that sweet spot where partners feel heard, their problems are getting solved, they've got the transparency, they can see what we're doing, they don't have any questions, right, that we haven't answered for them. And my staff is not overwhelmed with too many partners that they can't get to them all and they've got to dodge your email or your phone call or whatever. So my ultimate vision is to truthfully, like the God's honest truth, is to enjoy the ride. I want to take things as they come to us, and they're just coming to us like all the time. And so it's happening naturally. It feels good. My staff feels good. My partners feel good. And I think that's how I want to grow the business.
But you guys have a distributed workforce. And one of the things that I struggle with is, we've got team members here in Puerto Rico, in Europe, in Asia, and that creates a lot of complications, right? Because you don't have everyone coming into the same office. I mean, so how do you keep that cohesive team feeling?
I think culture, for sure. It's like I know that sounds like a canned answer, but it's the truth. I think if Team Lizard, comment below. I think if you were to ask the team how they feel about their job, they love their job. And I think that that's what's important. And if they love their job, they'll come in and they'll give their best, right? Quiet quitting. Has anybody heard this?
Oh, yeah, I heard about that. I read an article in the journal about it. Yeah.
For sure. Quiet quitting is like a new trend. And I think that this is a way that you stave this stuff off. They're your workforce, right? They want to feel empowered to do what it is that they're doing. They want to feel heard and respected. And they want to feel like you've got their back. And if you can provide those things while you're growing, you've got a team that like shows up and goes the extra mile. And my team shows up and they go the extra mile.
I think the other thing is that you're going to get better talent because that's part of, what you're offering them. You're saying, hey, you can work from home. You can control your schedule.
Yep.
So that's going to resonate with people, and that's going to really matter to certain people. So you don't have to, increase their pay substantially to attract them. And that's a big part of our culture.
Well, speaking of that topic, what have you done at Proof? I mean, we're in this whole work at home environment. So when you think about your administrative staff, are these guys coming into physical offices in Utah and Michigan and various areas? Or
So at Proof, we have a centralized headquarters in Phoenix. So if you go to our service offices, the branch manager may be in there, he may not.
Okay.
There's no one answering phones really. And in our administrative headquarters, we have a really flexible system. So we have some people that come in, and I actually don't even know all the requirements, but they have a training period. But after that, depending on performance, they only have to come in one time a week for a certain amount of time. But the vast majority of our administrators work from home.
And was that like that before the pandemic?
No, it started with COVID, and we just kind of reacted to it, and it's changed over time, where there was a point where nobody was coming in, and now a handful of people, they want to put on their work hat and go to work. Too many distractions at home. They don't have a location, office, or somewhere quiet or whatever. So it's flexible. Some people will come in just because they want to feel some of that team unity, but there's always about 10 to 30% of our workforce at a given time in the office.
They want to avoid their spouses and those sorts of things, basically.
Things like that.
You said
it. Okay.
I think when you can respond to that need specifically for a new generation in the labor force, when you can be open to that, that's another thing I don't know if Dad would have transitioned through really well because of his experience when he was that age, right? He was 22, 23, 24. He was in the cubes at Bell South. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I don't know if he would have made that transition so well. But if you can make that transition with good culture and building trust with your team and building trust with your partners, it works. It does work. It takes work, but it does work.
I'm legitimately curious about this. So you've got a large distributed workforce that's working from home. What do you have to do
to build that culture
as a leader of one of those organizations to make sure that this all the shit stays together right? I mean, what do you do?
I have put the right people in place to check processes. You've got to build processes, right, of reporting, right? And I've my number 2, shout out Carly. She is process queen at Lizard, and she loves it, and the team loves her. And so we're not, the team knows we're not building something to kind of micromanage anybody. We're building something so that they can continue to have the privileges and the space that we all get to have, right? It's a privilege for all of us to get to have it. I can put my laptop down because Elliot wants to go shoot a couple hoops, and then I can come back to it. Do you know what I mean? And that's great. That's a good thing to give to somebody who is starting out. So having the right processes in place are pretty important. And then Tatiana, she just joined us. She's over our creative department, and she's brilliant, process builder also. And then Brent with the account managers, same thing. So putting people in place gives you the ability to kind of stay zoomed out, so you don't have to get into the details all the time and drive yourself crazy,
I honestly
worried about
think
where people are.
That it's easier to manage good people remotely. It's harder to manage poor performers or bad employees remotely. And I'm an old school thinker too. Yeah. So I've had to come around to this idea. I didn't like it at first, but the managers told me, hey, this works better. And we just use data to manage, making sure people are on the phones, and with voice over IP and stuff, there's a lot of metrics that you can use. And getting it set up and getting the rules defined is a little more difficult, but you're going to have better performance because somebody's not looking over their shoulder, they're not being micromanaged, things like that.
Are you guys doing any sort of Zoom happy hour type stuff?
Well, we don't do happy hour. I end up being the only alcoholic that's drinking by myself at the town hall.
And
We
you're
have-
a lightweight down here.
I know, I know.
Have you done that before?
Well, I mean, unofficially, when I sent everybody the prosecco for our anniversary,
Oh yeah, I
and
didn't
then
get
it was
any of
just
that.
me. Well, I wouldn't send it to you.
Yeah. So you got sparkling water.
you get.
I didn't even
you
get
get the
Mormons
my
never
kids
get invited to the parties, right? Like,
yes, they do. They just get the sparkling apple juice.
I guess they only get invited if you invite one of them, right? If you invite multiple, they all watch each other. You get one good Mormon in there,
There,
no
that's what
problem.
we-
That's a good party.
Yeah. So we do town halls every day at noon. Our stand-ups every day at noon. I'm sorry, and then our town halls at 4:00 on Friday. So we're still touching base. There's still this constant connectivity. We break off in little pods as we're working on projects or trying to tackle stuff or setting up new business lines or something like that. But that we congregate the most at those spaces. And right now, our task is just trying to find everybody's bandwidth. What is the bandwidth of a decentralized company? You know, I definitely don't want to make it sound like we have it all together. We're actively participating, trying to figure out what that is, so we can figure out how to grow and grow well on behalf of our partners and on behalf of the team. So,
You know, when I look at, and again, I'm a finance guy, when I look at P&Ls, I start to see the cost of digital advertising over the last 24 months has spiked.
yeah.
What's the reality of the marketplace? What do you guys see out in the field?
Well, for us, that spike came because there was an initial drop off in 2020. So you have to put it in perspective.
You're saying the comp was low.
Yeah, swing the pendulum back the other way.
Yeah, so I think companies are trying to recover with a lot of the paid media. You're basically bidding for those impressions and clicks, and when there aren't other people bidding, then your cost per click is going to be lower. And now there are people that are trying to double down on, investing in their companies and growing. When in 2020 people freaked out, we didn't know what was going to happen, so they, cut back. But I think generally it's getting more expensive also. I think generally, unless you have a really well thought out and planned marketing strategy, you're going to pay a lot for a click.
For sure.
When I think about lawn care and pest control and HVAC and all these residential services, what makes financial sense to pay for, like from a digital marketing perspective, for a pest control lead?
Yeah. What you want to think about when you're thinking about what you should pay for is, Alan's right, you've got to have a strategy, because Google's going to take your money. It doesn't care how many conversions it gives you. That's on the digital marketing's shoulders to optimize to get better conversion, right? Yeah. Creating good benchmarks to start to see which optimizations continue to drive that conversion cost down. Right now, Proof is looking at roughly a $40 lead, $45 lead, somewhere in between there.
But when you talk about a lead, $45 a lead,
Phone call,
what's the
form fill.
chances of that? What's the conversion rate of that?
Well, that's the trick. That's on the sales team that receives the lead, right? Lizard's job is to make the phone ring. Lizard's job is to bring the form fill in. Lizard's job is to get that email in so that somebody that's working at Proof, somebody that's working at any of our other partners can run that lead down.
But you're going to set a baseline of at least 50% close rate.
Yeah.
If it's a qualified lead, which for us means that it's a service, they're calling about a service that we perform within an area that we perform it.
Yep.
Then our benchmark, our bottom is going to be 50%. So what I do is I start with what's my cost per customer acquisition target and work backward toward clicks or leads.
Okay.
And digitally, we're looking at anything under $200. I'm really happy, because on the door-to-door side, I'm well
It's going to be
north.
$385.
I'm well north of that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the trade-off with the route density, the demographic selection that I get with door-to-door is, hey, I'm acquiring these customers for a lot less. And so I'll start with, hey, this is my max customer cost per customer acquisition, and then work backward, imputing, I'm going to pay a small amount of commission for the phone sales rep, and that works me back. But if I'm getting a click for $40, which we're getting a lot of clicks for a lot less than that, then, but if I'm getting a qualified lead
Yep.
for that, then it works out.
That's true. Clicks are much cheaper, right? Your click should be south of like $3, right? Much further south of 2, right? But just because somebody's clicked on something doesn't mean they've converted. Converted means they made that buying action of making the phone call or filling out the form, right? So that should be, I love to see them in the $30, $40 range, right? It's possible to get there. And that's why that first step, when you start to get into the mechanics of your Google AdWords, knowing what you're doing when you're in there, partnering with somebody who knows what they're doing when they're in there is paramount, right?
We look at customer acquisition cost, and it's a ratio over lifetime value of customer. So we look at the duration of the customer.
Exactly.
Okay, well, how much does it cost us to get the customer, and then
How long
at the
will
end
they
of the
stay
day,
on
how
the
long are they
books?
going to stick around? And so, clearly the denominator is based entirely on the service organization.
100.
And there's a lot of things you can't control, right? People die, they move away, all those sorts of things. We
Yep.
get that. But at the end of the day, over a large sample size, a residential customer, in theory, should last at least 7 years. We like
sure.
to see a 7-year duration.
So that's
Sometimes
a 40.
it's 10.
That's exactly right. It's a $40 investment on several $1,000s worth of revenue. Do you know what I mean? So worth it.
And then if you're really playing Moneyball with it, that's where, you can do a variety of different analyses, and the more sophisticated companies do it, right? You look at customer acquisition cost over kind of the lifetime value of the customer, and then you layer in density, right? Because the more dense, the more valuable the longer term duration is going to be, right? A 7-year customer, if you've got to drive 50 miles to get to them, is worth a lot less than the guy that's next door to your other customer.
Yep.
So you can really Moneyball that out. I'm wondering, I guess this is more just my curiosity, but over time, will you folks really focus in on the aspects of the business that you can't control as an outside agency to help clients really think about lifetime value, think about density, think about those sorts of things?
So because Alan is so adept in the startup space and helping companies in the startup space, right? That's most of Lizard's bread and butter, right? It's great to have a conversation with a partner to help them connect dots or see things, have neurons like that fire off the first time and increase their business acumen just from the experience that we've had up until this point. So getting to partner with people and offer that to them as well is one of the more powerful things that we get to offer. And I love doing it. When they are successful, we get to be successful, and it shouldn't work in reverse, So it doesn't matter if we make the phone ring or make the forms come in 100 million times. If we're not doing a little bit more challenging work of helping them understand how to close these things, overcome these things, increase their revenue, then our budget's not going to grow because they're not going to connect that dot themselves, and they're just going to get rid of us. When they've kind of expanded and grown and done some work, I can think of one partner that we're working with right now that did inside sales training just because of the things that we were talking about together, and watched the next month over. The contract values that he had in place were growing like 130%. And then the conversions grew another 20% that month just by, hey, you got to take time to do this. We're making the phone ring, but you got to close this stuff down. Let me help you. It's powerful. It's to have help like that.
You being in the pest control space, you're now helping pest control clients build their businesses. Do you not take clients that sit right next to proof offices, or is there like a Chinese wall where you don't even pay attention to this?
On the Lizard side, no, we don't. There's this Chinese wall. There's no sharing of information. I couldn't tell you a lot about our clients, where their offices are, just not involved with that, and no one at Proof is. It's just a completely separate organization. I just happen to own both of them.
When you guys think about it from a, and this is just more curiosity on my end, it's like, if you have 2 clients that are on the south side of Charlotte, I mean, as a digital marketing agency, how do you deal with that? Because you're helping them both compete against each other, I
Well, the
guess?
levers with Google are they really come down to a couple of big factors. One of them is budget. One company is always going to be larger than the other company, and therefore their budget's going to be bigger, right? If you think of Google like real estate, it's not growing. It's why property value goes up sometimes, right? When more and more people are competing for those LSA ads at the top, they're going to get more expensive to be up there, right? Yeah. When more and more people are competing to have their ads on page 1, they're going to be a little bit more expensive to get there. So it comes down to budget, and it comes down to the team that you work with. when the team that you're working with knows how to run ads in a way that is clucky with your budget, you can still get up there and still make conversions that are conducive to your budget, right? For example, if Alan's company is a $10 million company that's spending, $10,000 a month on paid search, and I have a $1 million company and I'm spending, $1,000 or $3,000 a month on paid search. The goal of the digital marketing company is to put the conversion cost around the same dollar amount, right? We still want it to be $30 to $45 for Alan and $30 to $45 for Matt. That's the goal, because then the conversions are growing with the size of your budget that you can leverage. Alan's always going to be able to spend more than Matt because he's a $10 million company and I'm a $1 million company, right? And so I'm not going to show up as much as he is, right? Mm-hmm. But if I can keep those conversion costs around the same place, then everybody wins, right? Both companies are growing at a scalable rate.
And I think the non-technical justification is that, the question assumes that other company, one of the two on the south side of Charlotte, won't do digital marketing. Because if they go do any type of digital marketing, they're going to be competing with the other company anyway.
Correct.
Whether we're the ones doing it or not.
That's true. That's 100% true. So you might as well partner with people who know what the hell they're doing.
So Matt and Alan, as I think through all of this, I guess my final question for you guys is really what are the elements of great marketing for a pest control company?
I think it's just telling the story. Just telling the story of the pest control company. That's what Killingsworth did really well. There's two different avenues that you go down when you're thinking about marketing. One is getting leads. What am I doing to generate leads to keep the lights on? And the other is this brand development, so that I, create leads in the future. And part of that brand aspect is everything from how your technicians are dressed to the wraps on the vehicles and things like that. But, the owners aren't thinking about that long-term strategy.
Yeah.
And there needs to be an ongoing balance between those two, between, top line immediate revenue and developing this brand, because the brand is where it really pays off. That's where you develop this inherent value. And I think there's this financial aspect to it also, which is really tough, because a lot of times marketing can be a little bit like gambling. You kind of have to do it, but you got to understand it too. Don't just, push your chips in the middle of the table. Understand what your budgets are, be proactive about it. There is some guessing that goes into it, but if you can minimize that a little bit, then you're going to be better off. You understand your numbers. We talked a lot about cost per customer acquisition. Understand what it is for you. How much will you pay for a customer, and just work backward. I think that's kind of the trick.
When we were growing Killingsworth, I got really lucky in a couple of respects. One, Debbie and Dad were committed to marketing. And so there was always a budget there to work from, right?
Yep.
But two, I was partnered with a digital marketing company. Shout out Mike Pinckney, called Pinckney, based out of Charlotte. And what I learned from my experience and in working with Mike Pinckney is what I hope to create together, which is true partnership, right? There wasn't a time when the Killingsworth building might have been metaphorically on fire that I couldn't call Mike up and try to solve a problem, figure something out.
Yep.
I wasn't handcuffed to him. What led us together was trust. I think when it comes to digital marketing, having somebody that you trust to have your back and is just as committed to your brand growing as you are to growing the brand is what you want. That's the person that you want to have your back. You don't want to have someone that you distrust. You want to have somebody that you trust fully to have your business's best interest at heart. So I think that's the thing that makes all the difference.
I mean, it's complicated because most people don't understand it, especially when it gets to digital and cost per clicks and all this sort of jazz. The average, I know I don't understand it, right? And so I think the average business owner doesn't get it.
Yeah. Mike taught me all that. Mike Pinckney taught me all that stuff, right? Having somebody that's like, okay, it's clear that you don't understand what I'm saying. Let me break this down for you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Who takes the time to do that as opposed to just dumping an Excel spreadsheet in your face at the end of the month and then like, hey, here's your bill. Do you know what I mean? That makes, it's everything.
Well, listen, I really appreciate you guys coming down. We had a blast last night at dinner.
So
Thanks for
good.
coming down to Puerto Rico, and we're gonna head out to Dorado today and have a couple of
I'm
drinks.
hungry, man. I'm hungry.
Take care of that. Cheers, guys.
Cheers to friendship.